Alrighty, we are back with your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly, and it's episode number 478. We're recording live on August the 18th. Brianna, how are you?
Hanging in there. Another week working from home in the books. Getting this week my oldest started kindergarten, so trying to figure out digital learning, and I am so glad I'm not a teacher. Like, they definitely all deserve pay raises. Yeah, so it's like having a whole nother job to figure out now, but working through it.
Yeah, we don't start for another couple weeks up here, but yeah, same thing. It'll be a whole interesting challenge to see what happens, and inevitably somebody's going to test positive. There's going to be some school shut down, and who knows, what'll happen. We could all be back at home again, but whatever, we'll see. Yeah, but hey, on a happier note, my Raptors are, playoffs have begun, and they won the first game, so all is well.
They sure did. I saw that.
There you go.
I saw
Yeah.
that.
All right. Well, we have a good show for you this week. We've got three industry news stories and a guest in our Members at Home series. So I'll let Aubriana just jump right into it.
Yeah, so the very location specific story, Verizon has announced this new level of precision geo targeting and capabilities within their devices. And so this is called real-time kinematics technology. So usually when you think about how precise, uninterrupted GPS signal is from a device, you're thinking like 3 to 9 meters in that range. Obviously when you get around more buildings and in more, more dense and urban areas, you're going to have less accuracy. But this new type of technology is getting accuracy down to 2 centimeter precision. I mean, this is like very, very precise, right? And so this will be better location data for specific use cases like IoT. So what it's going to do is, obviously it's going to decrease the cost of IoT because it can be more precise. And it will also make it more efficient. And so, the risks related to operating certain systems with IoT things like, autonomous applications, you might think of like self-driving software, moving things, on their own, obviously. The precision is obviously very, very important. So this will be coupled with their 5G network. And they highlighted 2 partnerships, one that we know of a company very well. So they are partnering with the mapping company Here Technologies, and they've also partnered with Renovo, which is an autonomous vehicle system which uses RTK, or the real-time kinematics technology. So this is a good advancement, obviously, when you think about like self-driving cars, or even just machinery. You think about like moving suitcases throughout the airport, or packages throughout facilities, or maybe even like healthcare, how you can track and find certain pieces of equipment that may not be easy to find, or move them around. So the precision piece is really important. So I think this is pretty cool. Obviously when we think about precision and the location data, a lot of times it's about marketing applications, but this obviously has a whole nother application. And I, for one, am very hopeful that by the time my kids are driving, that most cars will be driving themselves and be extremely safe. But we'll see if that happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from accuracy point of view, I think this technology is fascinating and very, very powerful. Obviously Verizon isn't the only one to be doing this. The story mentioned that SoftBank is deploying this in Japan, the same kind of RTK technology, and they announced that last year. So, certainly this, the desire and the need to have this kind of level of accuracy is becoming more and more important. I think, the area that you talked about, of some of these applications in terms of asset tracking, of knowing where things are and equipment and things, I think is very interesting. One of the areas where to kind of bring this into retail that I think could be interesting is, um, historically we talk a lot about beacons and these types of things on an indoor positioning perspective. But, if you think about sort of embedded sensors now into fabric, into clothing, into goods that we might buy, knowing where those things are inside of stores could be very interesting. And I see it on two levels. One is like, if somebody picks up a jacket to go try it on and brings it from the rack to the change room or those types of things, that type of level of accuracy of the actual item. But also like from a, sort of self-checkout, cashierless type of retail environment, having accuracy of where goods are and things like that at that level of 2 centimeters is vital, right? So I think there's a lot of things you can do with this, let alone the sort of the autonomous vehicles and driving and all that aspect of what they are talking about already. So I think there's huge implications for this. I think the technology is incredibly fascinating, and I think there's a lot that they can be doing with this, and I think partnerships with companies like here and others, and as the 5G network becomes sort of wider deployed, across all of our countries, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they can kind of play that in, especially as an outdoor technology for accuracy, where satellites at 3 meters or what have you is not great for a lot of the applications we want today. So there you go. All right, our second story, an interesting one. DoorDash is at it again. We've talked a fair bit about DoorDash, over this COVID time, and they've been really kind of ramping up, and testing new offerings. And so they're announcing a new thing called DashMart, which are actual stores, convenience stores to be specific. So DoorDash has been, sort of doing all kinds of interesting things. They teamed up with Walgreens and 7-Eleven and CVS, and they've been delivering drug, prescriptions and convenience items and these kinds of things to people. They launched a program called Main Street Strong to help restaurants, so restaurants that were basically on the DoorDash platform, to kind of help drive, more engagement, keep them, alive during COVID times. And now they've launched this new thing called DashMarts, and so they're actually building their own convenience stores, sort of like going head to head in some respects with 7-Eleven. So these are sort of like mini physical stores. And what they're doing is they're, at least the way they're pitching this and positioning this, is it's a way to help brands that maybe are struggling right now to have more channels to sell their products. So they're teaming up with guys like Brothers Barbecue and the Cheesecake Factory and others like that to basically carry their products physically in these DashMart stores. It's up and running right now in 8 cities, and they plan to expanding this across the country in the coming months. And I think it's interesting to see somebody like DoorDash kind of move into kind of the physical retail space environment and have their own physical space to carry products of brands that they normally would just deliver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I think is really interesting as well is that having the ability that they've, DoorDash obviously started from just the delivery platform, and having the ability to have insight into the things that are being ordered, the things that are being requested the most, whether that's from a food perspective or even, a pharmacy perspective. I love how you were like, they deliver drugs. It's like, sign me up, right? And so like, I think that that's really smart, because now they are moving from, it's almost like Amazon, right? Like, what people are looking for. You have the ability to look at what is searched for, what is, selling the most. And then, typically what happens is then Amazon moves into those, private labels and creates their own, because they say, hey, we can make more money here, right? I mean, it's kind of like the conflict of interest, if you will, there. But in this case, there's no conflict of interest, almost, as they are just able to maybe help those brands, as you mentioned, right? It seems like it's a more of a a demand. Like, we understand the demand of certain goods and the areas where those are demanded, and so we can kind of move into this from a much more data and analytical perspective, versus just saying like, hey, this is a great area for a store based upon the demographics here. So I like that. I think that this makes a lot of sense for them. And I think it's a smart move that differentiates them from their competitors. So I'm interested to see how this pans out, and then how much they decide to scale.
Yeah, and so they say initially they'll offer 2,500 items in the stores, and the 8 cities are Chicago, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, Dallas, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Redwood City, California, and Salt Lake City. So there you go. And growing from there. So like super interesting. I think it'll be something to watch, as you say, and I think the data that these and the insights that they have on what's in demand is fascinating.
Mhm.
Very much like Amazon in that sense. All right, so that's the first two stories, and before we get to our final story for this week, we do have a guest this week on our Members at Home series, and his name is Rich Ventura. And now he's somebody who's very well known to the LB May community, been a speaker at many of our conferences, a well-respected gentleman in the digital out of home and digital signage world, former chair of the Digital Signage Federation, and for 20 years was in various senior leadership roles at NEC, the big digital signage company. And over this COVID time, he has switched affiliations. After 20 years, he's left NEC and is now at Sony. And so I had a chance earlier today actually to sit down with Rich and talk about that transition and kind of what he's doing now, kind of what he sees next, and what it's been like kind of working from home and all of that. So here he is, Rich Venturi. He's VP of B2B Solutions at Sony Electronics, and I'll let him speak for himself. Here we go. Alrighty, I'm very excited this week because we get to have a really special guest on our show. He is a well-known person to the world of the Location-Based Marketing Association, but he's in a brand new role. His name is Rich Ventura. Rich, welcome to Location Weekly.
Thanks, Asif. Always great to catch up.
Yeah, so as I alluded to, you're in a brand new role. Rich is the VP of B2B for Sony Electronics, their imaging products and Pro Solutions Group. And I say it's a new role because for as long as I've known you anyways, you've been with NEC, and here you are now jumping over to Sony. First of all, how's that been? Like, after so long at one company to make a switch, how has that been?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It's been an interesting journey. 20 years at one company, and I've been with Sony for about 9 weeks. It's been exciting. It's great organization. I always think highly of my friends and family at NEC, and I'm in this new journey with the new family, and I couldn't be any more excited. The products are fantastic. The teams are strong. The mission is strong. The direction we're taking is definitely very strong. So it's a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really happy for you. You found something in a field obviously that you have a ton of expertise in, but a really great opportunity, and especially in this unique time that we're all living in, this COVID time. So this series of podcasts we've been doing for the last number of months, we're calling Members at Home because, as you are, most of us are working from home. Sort of imposed by our companies or just choosing to isolate and work from home. So first question really is how has that been for you? I mean, I know you as a guy like myself who lives on the road, is speaking at conferences, traveling all over the world. That's not happening right now. So, how's that adjustment been for you?
It's actually been a mixed blessing. Obviously, it's a difficult time. It's a difficult challenge for all of our people to work from home, especially those who've never worked from home. And so you run into the new obstacles, the new challenges that they have for that whole new world. The blessing side of it's allowed me to really learn more about this organization, learn more about the Sony way, and then also intermixing, intertwining the Rich way so we can move forward. Difficult part has been not being able to really be there with all the employees and get to spend time with them and then see all of our customers. So it's been a challenge. But it's like I said, it's been that mixed blessing. The other thing I will say that has actually shown all of us especially those of us who are road warriors, is we don't necessarily have to be on the road every single day to get our jobs done. And so it actually has created and fostered a lot more creativity on how we engage with our clients, engage with our partners. And I think when we come out of this, not an if, but when, I think we're going to see business done a little differently, which I think is going to allow us to be a lot more agile and fluid in how we sell and how we engage with our clients.
Yeah, well, I want to pick up on something you just said, like, being more creative. So one of the things we've been asking people on these interviews for these last number of months is, what are some new tools that you've discovered that you didn't have before, you weren't using before, in how you're able to kind of stay in touch with colleagues, collaborate with colleagues or clients. Obviously, lots of people, have discovered Slack and Zoom and things like that. Is there anything kind of unique and different to what you've been doing that's been helpful?
Honestly, tools wise, I think we're all using the same tools. You're either using Teams, you're using Zoom, you're using Slack, you're using one of those communication tools. I think the biggest challenge is, as I hear from a lot of people, is we start getting the quote unquote Zoom fatigue or the Teams fatigue because we're on video, we're on calls so much. And one of the things that I remind everybody is video. Add video. Most people just do an audio version of these calls. They don't use the video aspect, and the video is important because you still have a connection you're making with somebody. I would say the only tool that I per se maybe used more than I've ever done before is I walk around a lot in my office when I talk, and so historically I would always have my headphones with my mic and built into it. And one of the things I did is I put a boom mic in my office so that I can really move around my office and utilize that technology a little differently, which is what we normally use for podcasting. I've chosen this to be, my traditional way of speaking with everybody. Outside of that, the fortunate thing for me is I'm used to having a home office, so I'm used to having a lot of these tools here. But I definitely have seen such a massive influx of people utilizing the Teams and being creative how they use it. Don't just use it for a video call. They're using it for sharing content, working together on documentation for cross collaboration, things like that.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the business now. So obviously, 20 years at NEC, now at Sony. From I know you've only been there 9 weeks, but from a product perspective or technology perspective, in terms of the offering, what's the coolest kind of thing that Sony's got that you're excited about? Sort of being able to get out there and sell and promote that you didn't have access to before.
There's a lot of unbelievable technologies at Sony. It's interesting for me coming from the display world and then seeing some of the other products that we have access to, whether it's our PTZ cameras, which is massive for collaboration and for the distance engagement we have going on right now. We have a product within that line called Edge, which really allows you to do distant education, distance communication, being able to use a camera and AI and analytics, and it's doing handwriting recognition, and it's allowing you to make virtual backgrounds and backdrops and then upload that into any LMS systems that the school or the end user is using. That's something that is really game changing. A lot of people have the ability of using cameras to track you as you walk around. This takes it to like 10 levels even above that. Taking that, and then also you look at our CLED platform, our high-end, unbelievable LED, micro LED product is just phenomenal. The picture quality is amazing. So looking at a lot of those things were really exciting, and they're products that are game changers. You add in even with our display products having an Android player built into them, allowing us to run digital signage or run a video conferencing application that's designed for Android. We're able to do that natively right in our displays, which is pretty slick.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'd love to learn more about the handwriting recognition and that kind of stuff. That's fascinating. So let's talk last year about COVID. One of the things that we've seen and read about and heard about is a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurant chains, a lot of retailers, a lot of folks that we deal with at the LBMA are trying to figure out, how they reopen safely, how they bring people back. So there's a lot of focus right now on touch-free everything, right? And screens to me seem to be playing a big role in that, in messaging wait times or messaging, communications and distancing and mask compliance and other things, that's really important. How are you guys seeing that play out? Sort of the COVID use case for your products right now.
So you had the early companies that jumped on board and started launching all of these temperature sensors. That was like the first thing that came out right away. But even before that, if we go back a year and a half ago, BrightSign, for example, introduced voice-activated touch. So being able to speak into the device and it could interact and collaborate with the kiosk. Obviously, then you add in things like mobile, augmented reality applications, things like that allow you to engage. That hasn't changed. I think companies are being more creative how they're using the tech. Touch itself is taking a pretty big hit because we're all scared to touch screens right now. But what it's also created and fostered and drove is a stronger understanding of how we clean our displays and the technologies out there that allow you to maintain clean displays. So we've seen a really strong influx of that. As anything, and I think I said this to a lot of people at the very beginning of this, is that something like this, what we're dealing with COVID, what you're going to have are companies are going to become more creative than they've ever been before. And they're going to find new ideas, new opportunities, new strategies behind it. And it's no different at Sony. We're looking at with our, I mentioned about Edge. Edge is a perfect solution for the environment to allow you to collaborate for over a distance, but it doesn't add the touch element, right? So now we start looking at how do we take products with touch and either supply education on cleaning, or do you align with companies that have cleaning solutions? So we're looking at a lot of those things. But our displays, first and foremost, are information screens, which is critical in a time like this to supply information to everybody. So our products are going into digital signage applications where they're informing about whatever the recent status is, reminding people to clean their hands, all of those things. So it's really helping drive that content that's really critical right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's where we're seeing as well with so many of the brands that we're working with. It's all about messaging and communication and reminding people to do the right things, right? Absolutely. So last thing here is I see behind you there, the Cincinnati Reds jersey. Your team isn't doing great. They're about the same as my Blue Jays right now. And you're in Cubs land, right? They're at the top of the division at the moment. What's going on?
Actually, I'm a Twins fan. Remember, I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, that's right.
So we are top of the American League here. So no, the jersey behind me is a Pete Rose jersey from.
Okay.
So I grew up as a huge Pete Rose fan.
All right.
That was my baseball player that I followed. So I was fortunate a few years back to be in Las Vegas, and I got to meet him at one of the sports shops. So this is actually a signed jersey that he signed for me, and it's hard to see, but there's a picture of me shaking hands with him and when he was signing everything. So that was kind of I got to meet my childhood idol.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very good. Well, congrats then on your Twins being doing well right now. We're not doing so well up here in Toronto, but at least we've got the Raptors.
Yeah, it makes it tolerable living in Chicago, in White Sox country and Cubs country, to have the Twins doing as well as they're doing. It's nice to see baseball. I mean, that's probably been the hardest change for all of us, is not having live sports.
Yeah.
And being able to engage. So.
Right, and you've got a new person on the way. Congrats to that.
Yeah, yep. It's going to be. We've got an interesting journey this year between joining Sony, and we've got a little one coming in October. So I'm pretty excited about the addition.
Awesome. Well, great to see you. Great to catch up. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule, and congrats on life and where you're at right now. Congrats on your new role at Sony and your family and all of that. Just safe, healthy, COVID free and all of that. And hopefully we'll get to see each other soon, in real life. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rich. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, Rich. Really appreciate you jumping on the show and giving us some insight into what you're doing. And congrats on the move. And we look forward to seeing you soon in the physical world, hopefully. All right. Okay.
Yes. All right. Our final story today comes from Google. And this is a pretty interesting announcement. Again, going back to sort of location technology. And that ongoing theme here is that Google has announced now that they will be launching an Android earthquake alert system. So they are building their own Android, detection network that will be embedded with all of their, Android devices on every Google Play Android phone. So this is really interesting because so apparently, I mean, we know that our devices have accelerometers in there, and it's a passable enough, meaning like it's not perfect, but it's good enough to be used as a seismometer, which is, how they measure earthquakes. Obviously, they have much larger devices that are set up for specific use cases. But when you pair what we have in our devices with location data of multiple users at scale, you actually can kind of create this makeshift earthquake detection. So you can detect that there's, an earthquake that's happened, and then you can potentially warn other users. So, not too long ago, I think it was back in maybe 2016, the University of California, Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and with some funding from the state of California, actually developed an app called MyShake, which was like a cheap kind of version of this as well. And so, they are working with, there's a backend system that's called MyShake that allows clients to use that, and it's called Shake Alert. And so Google is using the same kind of foundational technology and backend system to launch this. So what I thought was, I kind of geek out a little bit on this, but basically they say that whenever you are detecting an earthquake, like you are racing at the speed, you're racing the speed of light, which is roughly how fast data can travel from cell phones, right? Those signals can travel against the speed of an earthquake. And, usually the speed of light is faster. So, well, it is faster. So, they say this often only works out to like a minute of warning, but that's usually enough to obviously duck or take cover or, get to a less dangerous spot. So in California, they have this Shake Alert, but everywhere else in the world, they don't have this built out sort of earthquake technology and network. So for now, Google's going to just roll this out as a feature, for use in California. But they'll be using kind of their in-house system, which is like, hey, there's an earthquake that we saw, and we'll send out a signal to those devices, not in California as much as they can. But they will be rolling out this feature for all of the Android phones running 5.0 and up, which is like 94% of the 2.5 billion Google Play devices that, proliferate the ecosystem right now. And over the next coming year, they're hoping to roll out these earthquake alerts at, more capacity and scale across many, many states and countries. But this to me is like super interesting. I remember, years ago in the IP intelligence space, which is where I have a lot of my background, they started using IP intelligence based upon search query to determine where an earthquake's epicenter was. And based upon that, you could kind of say like, this is where the epicenter of the earthquake was at an even faster pace than a lot of the earthquake technology is there. And this to me is, I think is like another pairing that is going to be even faster because of the capacity and the speed that the signals from our devices can travel. And also there's no user necessarily, like as long as you have your location services enabled for this specific feature, there's no user interaction that's necessary. So a search doesn't have to happen. You can just use the motion detection of the device along with, all the other devices that are in a specific area to determine, that this course location is experiencing an earthquake or like aftershocks or like whatever is going on. So I mean, I think this is a really, really cool application. I like this. I think, this is a safety feature, and having that extra minute, sometimes could be the difference between, saving a life. So it's nice to see Google, one of these big companies, making an announcement that's more of a people centric offering.
It is. I agree. And I think that, more and more we're seeing interesting use cases. COVID's shown us, obviously with, COVID alerts and things like that about, cases near you or, exposure and all of that. All these things are about saving lives. And so I like that. I think it's a great way for them to leverage the technology. The one thing here that they don't talk about, obviously, which is sort of, just there is this an opt-in feature? Do people have to agree to share their location data, to, enable this capability?
Yeah, it is an opt-in feature. So basically this will be under your location services. So it'll be automatically turned off. If you want to opt in, you have to turn it on. So this is part of that, that opt-in through your settings on the device.
So just like the COVID applications and things like that. So, I think a ton of value there, right, in it. And I like that they're using the sensors in the device. One thing that I get really frustrated on when I look at the advertising, community is that there's so many sensors in these smartphones today. Like this is using the accelerometer, but there's a gyroscope, there's a compass, there's a magnometer, there's all sorts of things for barometric readings and whatnot. And we don't use any of those, for the most part in the ad units and the display units that we see on our devices. And there's so much that can be done with this, and this is just a great way to kind of bring some visibility to that as well, which I think is great and fascinating, and can really kind of drive utility in the sensors that are there. I mean, obviously there's companies who are trying to do that, but for the most part it's not mainstream, right, to leverage that. I remember when I was listening to you, I remember some years ago now, somebody built an app in Boston called Bump. And what they were doing is that they were trying to get citizens in the city of Boston to download this app. And as you drove around the streets, every time you hit a pothole, basically, if you had this app, it would see that little move up and down of your vehicle. And when they'd set some thresholds, and once the threshold was met using open government data systems, they would automatically from the Bump app send a request to the city to come fill this pothole. So people didn't have to manually report and do all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of great ways to use data like this. And good on Google for kind of finding an interesting use case. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our show. You've been listening to episode number 478 of Location Weekly. We thank you for listening and watching. We appreciate all the feedback, story ideas. Please reach out to us if you have some. And we're easily found on all the channels. And if you're watching the video, the contact information is at the end of the show. Have a great week, everybody. And thank you, Rich, once again. And we'll be back next week with yet another show and more news. Take care. Bye.
Bye.